She put it aside in a fold. She made it softer. The name that had the power to alter everything was a blue. Additionally, the more you examine her deliberate language, her pauses, and her selective details, the more understandable it is. She wasn't defending a narrative. She was defending the truth is sealed in Tamar's words, but rather in her silence. Additionally, Tasha K claims that the DNA test holds the key to all the details she omitted. Tasha K connected Funky's account of the evening to Tamar's DNA test. The change was felt throughout the internet. But the real disintegration started when people visited returning to examine Tamar's interviews. Her gentle voice suddenly sounded carefully chosen rather than just emotionally charged. It felt heavier with each delay. Every seems deliberate. Instead, into emotions at every turn. Facts acted as a barrier. The way she skillfully framed her night around confusion caught the attention of viewers. How fast she ignored the hours prior to the event. She questioned, but she needed company or order. They became increasingly aware that Tamar wasn't speaking from a position of uncertainty as they continued to She was talking from a location of deliberate selection. What mattered was not what she recalled. It was something she wouldn't say. And when Tasha aligned, that quiet grew increasingly suspicious. Tamar declined to bring it up. People started going back to Funky's live stream as proof rather than. His tone wasn't dramatic, rather evicted by the truth. It's how he'd gone into the darkness. All of a sudden, the group dynamics and energy shifts felt more grounded, logical, cute. He recalled feelings because he could recall the surroundings. The restaurant, the vehicle, the moving seats, and the subtle intimacy that made it wasn't dramatic when he mentioned that he felt alienated. It was an observational study. It had nothing. It was developing next, and that's why he had such a vivid memory of it. The things that individuals in the center pretend aren't happening are always visible to those outside. Additionally, the potential that Tamar's test might connect with the man who made her leave. Funky's insights took on a whole new significance. It wasn't only it was the tone of whispering and the ensuing quiet. And that's where Tasha K's assertion regarding the DNA test hurt the most, since it only had more significance than Tamar ever acknowledged. A test is only required if the more than just a brief period, only when the subject of the test never expects a secret. The only person who fits that shared space, and who made a change, according to Funky's account. The individual determined to remove from her story. Mendeecees observes that the audience has begun to link timelines. Tamar, that night, she went to Funky since she needed somewhere to go. Wasn't started by party. The group energy wasn't started by Funky. The night did not carry her away. It was her idea. Did not take part passively. She was in charge of deciding where the group went, who joined, how long they remained, and where they sat. Clearly. All right. However, his description of her leading the evening to wonder how Tamar would later assert she lacked insight, control, and clarity. It was not a contest. According to her interview, she was a path. Funky's recollection, she was in control. There were other warning signs besides the Uber. He felt compelled to stay up late, even if he didn't want to. Chaos is not the source of that kind of push. It comes from someone who is motivated to going. Someone who still has energy left in them. Someone who desires seclusion but isn't ready. Someone who desires the removal of witnesses without being overt. He said that the gang decided to expel him after he made the decision to quit. When Tasha mentioned the DNA test, viewers understood what she meant. Clarifies things. He left in a natural, non-dramatic manner, sensed that the night was no longer his. The energy constricted into something he shouldn't be in. He didn't want to be the third wheel in a story. Parted. Furthermore, Tamar's version doesn't start until after he's left. everything that her interview focused on. Funky is unable to explain confusion that time. However, Tasha closes that gap. It's the void left by Tamar. She guarded the silence. It completes the period that she declined to describe. Additionally, if it fits the man, she never Tamar's soft after being mentioned. It had nothing to do with accusing. It was about acknowledging that she was telling the truth. In reverse, tell anyone how that she did tell them how it ended. She described her wake-up to who took her upstairs. She shared her emotional suffering with the world, but she omitted the emotional bond that might have started the evening. Moreover, I now get why Tamar never discussed the instances Funky recounted when incorporates the DNA test into the story, due to the question that the exam subtly addresses is direct moments. Additionally, Tasha claims that Tamar's side of the story is not supported by that response. Funky's. It wasn't in K connected the final thread that the internet realized how brittle the story was, that the existence Tamar deleted might be consistent with the results of her DNA test. Yes, indeed. Everything about her altered. Viewers were not witnessing a traumatized victim speak. They observed someone avoiding that she didn't want examined. Additionally, the difference between their renditions increased as more people watched Funky's live feed more loudly. Like smoke, Tamar drifted and floated, shapeless, terrible, emotive, and lovely. The plot of Funky's story was linear. He recalled places, people, changes in energy at the precise instant the night ceased to be his. The more viewers contrasted the two. If Tamar revealed too much, she stood to lose something. Funky had something to lose if he didn't say anything. And a test that she never completely explained was suddenly filling the void between their stories. Tamar's suspicious emotional tone. She sobbed, but her tears were focused on the result rather than the circumstances. She talked of being scared and hurt when she woke up alone. Yet the hours before she passed out were not described by her. She never mentioned who she'd rely on that evening, who stayed close, or who went upstairs. The more people hit rewind, the more she never explained why she deleted the same person Funky saw in the Uber inches from her. The more they observed, Tamar managed the frame. She positioned herself in the light. She described the evening as chaotic. However, framing is better than remembering. And Tamar meticulously crafted her tale to shield a shadow that the DNA was a threat to reveal. People were most troubled by not because Funky talked about something shocking, but uncomfortable would notice the subtlety and smallness of what he expressed. He described how the seats moved, how Tamar got closer to Mendeecees, and how her body language was too personal for a night she later said she hardly understood. The car's stillness was a sign of focus rather than confusion. He recalled how the group appeared to shrink into its own center, leaving him outside, and how the air became tighter. The detail became apparent to spectators. "I knew I didn't belong there," he reiterated. That statement was more than annoyance. It was a gut feeling, intuition from someone who entered a night that was already emotionally charged. Intuition from someone observing a bond form between two individuals who claimed nothing was going on. Instinct from a person who was not supposed to be a witness, yet felt like one. The more people studied it, the more they understood that Tamar's account avoided confrontation with Funky's. She didn't correct his memory since fixing it would mean admitting the bits she didn't want to talk about. She acknowledged the extreme intimacy. She just didn't bring it up. She didn't speak to Mendeecees, removed him, and that eraser turned into the loudest hint. Because irrelevant things are not erased by people. Things that show too much are erased. He was not forgotten by Tamar. She stayed away from him. Additionally, the DNA test is currently floating and the viewers started to get why that avoidance was so strong in light of the story's backstory. Then Funky's description of the section that rocked the chronology appeared. The decision to leave was the most difficult. He claimed to feel as though the energy was no longer his, that there's something about the when they got to the building, the group dynamic changed. However, Tamar and Mendeecees moved in a way that negated the need for him. He claimed he didn't quarrel, storm out, or cause a commotion. He just took a step back, closed the elevator door, and let the night go on without him. And because of what Tamar went on to explain, that soft retreat and quiet exit became the story's emotional timestamp. After Funky departed the scene, there was panic, injury, and bewilderment. He didn't see what came next, but he saw enough to know why she did it. The version she wanted to tell didn't match the latter account. At this point, Tasha's assertion caused the internet to completely freeze. She proposed that the timeline Funky saw before that point would be consistent with the DNA test Tamar spoke about. Not the mayhem Tamar talked about. It was the emotional intimacy she never acknowledged, not the missed or the missing pieces. Since a test doesn't emerge from uncertainty and bewilderment, and there is only one source of possibilities, the individual she failed to identify. She did not identify the presence. She never acknowledged the presence. The relationship she hazy. If Tamar hardly remembered the night, viewers began to raise questions that she never answered. Is she alert, according to Funky? Why did she remember enough to construct an innocent story if she had no idea what had happened? And why do all of Funky's details fit together like puzzle pieces that point to one clear interpretation if the night was as chaotic as she claimed? At this point, the audience started to perceive the story as a cover rather than a contradiction. Tamar was telling the truth. She was concealed, preserving, softening, and removing the portion of the evening that provided context for everything that came after. Her quietness around Mendeecees felt so loud because of this. His presence clarifies everything, not because his name is controversial. Why did she stay away from specifics? Why she concentrated on her emotions? Why the test was important? Why her story didn't start till after Funky's? That evening, many discovered Tamar wasn't confused. The following morning, she exercised caution. Additionally, when someone is cautious, picking each word as though it were supporting a wall. However, one brick in that wall is now cracked as a result of Tasha's confession. The hammer is the DNA test. Is the hammer. When the narrative reached this last level, the internet at last recognized that in the noisy times, the truth was never concealed. It wasn't in Funky's worn-out bulk, Tamar's quivering voice, or even Tasha K's acerbic delivery. It was lurking in the silent intervals between omissions, pauses, uttered names, and names ignored. Additionally, as more people stitched this, the more time they spent together. The more they realized that Tamar and Funky never contradicted themselves against two completely distinct kinds of blame. Tamar erased context to hide her weakness. Funky kept himself sane by providing context at last. Furthermore, nothing by the DNA test, which lurked in the background like an unwelcome witness. It just was there. Reputations, feelings, and stories didn't matter to it. It was only concerned with alignment. Tasha claims that alignment tended. Suddenly, the night that everyone believed to be perplexing, harmless, and misinterpreted doesn't appear perplexing at all. Since Funky Dineva made his startling assertions during a live stream, claims concerning energy changes, missing timelines, and an indisputable intimacy between Mendeecees and Tamar, the internet believed that the pandemonium had reached its zenith. However, everything changed again when Tasha K entered. Her tone was informal from the outside. The typical celebrity gossip, DJ board laughs, and wine glass gags. However, beneath that ease, that radiance, and that grin, she was resting on knowledge that transforms everything. Next, pick a link between Funky's worn-out confession and Tamar's poignant interview. Tamar never wanted anyone to look at this particular detail. Her DNA examination. Tasha K is now speaking out the silent part. This may be the final detail that perfectly fits the night Funky talked about. The night she never clarified. The night she softened, skipped, or forgot. The same evening that her purported intimacy with Mendeecees became unavoidable. The gaps in Tamar's timeline suddenly seem more significant. Funky's uneasiness becomes more apparent. All of a sudden, the mystery surrounding that evening no longer seems mysterious. Because Tasha K claims that the DNA tests do more than merely pose questions. The dots Tamar left hanging in midair are connected by it. She stayed away from dots. Dots, funky, unintentionally disclosed, dots that go back to the one instance that everyone suspected but was unable to verify. The room is now quiet. The internet is frozen. And the tale that everyone had a new center dot, which they believed because if Tasha K's assertion is accurate, Mendeecees' night was always present in Tamar's own DNA results and was never concealed. Any story's truth develops in the shadows, undetected, and doesn't suddenly blow out. Unconcerned, until someone is courageous or enough irritated to turn. Tamar's interview lingered on for weeks, like a gentle haze of scent. Her timeline was disorganized, and she had a soft voice and a weak fragility. People felt compassion. People thought she was trying her hardest to share. Then there was Funky, whose voice was pain-free. But